Stuffed flatbreads look simple until the filling starts leaking everywhere. Most failures happen before the bread ever reaches the pan. Today, I am making a potato and onion stuffed flatbread using pantry staples. I'll show you how to keep the filling inside where it belongs and ensure the bread browns evenly. Hi friend, come on in. Flatbread can fail during shaping, leaking while cooking, or browning unevenly. There are ways to combat these issues, and the first is by starting out with a nice soft dough that stretches without tearing. In a bowl, I have 270 grams of flour. To my flour, I want to add 1 teaspoon of instant yeast, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. I give that a quick mix to ensure even distribution. Then I want to add 160 grams of warm water and 18 grams of melted butter. A basic dough is flour, water, salt, and yeast. Everything else is added for a reason. Butter helps inhibit gluten formation by shortening gluten strands, making for a very soft and stretchy dough that will roll flat when needed. Bring the dough together by hand or with a wooden spoon or dough whisk. Once the dough forms, switch to a bowl knead while cleaning off the sides of the bowl. There may be a few dry spots and wet spots. This will even out. Dump the flour out and knead for about 30 seconds, enough to help even out the hydration in the dough. The dough will be a little sticky here. My favorite thing is to flip the bowl over the dough and let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes. This helps the flour to hydrate and the gluten to begin forming while I am cleaning the kitchen. It ultimately means I don't have to knead the dough for as long. After the dough has been resting, it should go from a slightly lumpy surface texture to smooth in just a few kneads, and the slight stickiness will disappear to a slightly tacky dough. Knead the dough for about 6 to 8 minutes to help develop the gluten. The dough should be smooth and elastic, resisting back when pressed. Place the dough back into the bowl with a thin layer of oil to help it release. Cover with a wet tea towel and allow it to proof for about 1 hour or until doubled. While the dough is proofing, I want to make the filling. The filling needs time to cool down before it goes into the dough, and I'll explain why later. In a skillet, sauté about half a minced onion until golden. While the onion is cooking, prepare the potato. If you are using leftover mashed potatoes, warm them gently. If your potatoes are runny, you may need to add additional potato flakes or flour to stiffen them up. If you are using potato flakes, add about 1 cup of flakes to about half a cup of liquid. For my liquid component, I used mostly water with a splash of milk and a small pat of butter. I then seasoned with salt and pepper and a half teaspoon of garlic powder, all to taste. It is easier to add the seasoning to the liquid. This ensures it is evenly mixed throughout the filling. The filling should be firm enough to hold its shape. A loose or wet filling creates excess steam and makes leaks much more likely. Stir until all the potato flakes have been hydrated. Add in water, a 1/4 teaspoon at a time if needed, but this really should be very thick. It is better to err on the side of too dry. Once your onions are cooked, add them to the filling and stir to combine. I found it was better to portion out the filling into 6 roughly 45-gram portions and form them into balls. Not only do they chill faster, but it saves a step later. Cover your portioned filling and place in the fridge until needed. Once you understand the technique, the filling becomes completely customizable as long as it is pre-cooked and relatively dry. Avoid saucy or cheesy fillings that can melt, creating steam and leak points. Consider using some leftover spiced lentils or refried beans. Once the dough has risen, it is time to portion. I like to use a scale to portion everything to ensure consistency and make the cooking easier. For this dough, each portion should be about 75 grams. Once I have the correct amount portioned, I want to round them into a ball and allow them to rest about 10 to 15 minutes. Resting relaxes the gluten, making the dough much easier to roll. While the butter we added earlier helps with rolling, gluten has formed and will resist, so it is better to work with the dough than against it. You'll notice I haven't floured the counter yet. The light coating of oil on the dough prevents sticking while helping any seams stick back together. Too much flour here can actually make sealing more difficult. Remove your cooled filling from the fridge and set it to the side. A warm filling starts creating steam before the dough has had a chance to seal. To roll out the dough, add a small amount of flour to the working surface and roll out a little larger than palm-sized. Take the dough round in one hand and place a portioned potato ball in the center. Gather the dough around the ball, gently stretching over the potato. Seal the dough around the potato by either gathering it around or pinching off the extra. The first method makes for a slightly thicker dough layer on one side and may not seal as well due to the flour, while the second method makes for a nicer seal with less dough but does leave a little piece of leftover dough to enjoy later. As you are gently working the dough around the filling, press the dough onto the filling, working out any extra air. Should a small air bubble get trapped inside, I'll show you how to get that out later, but for now, once the dough has been sealed, place it seam side down to rest while filling the remaining dough rounds. Take the first filled ball onto a floured work area and gently press the rolling pin into the center and work your way to the edges. The short rest should have been enough to allow for the dough to roll out nicely and the seam to seal to itself. As you roll, be aware of how much the dough is resisting. If the dough starts springing back, let it rest again. Mine felt soft enough to continue working it out to about a 6-inch or 15-centimeter round. I flip as needed. The final thickness will be about 1/4 of an inch or about 1/2 centimeter. While rolling, if you encounter an air bubble, now is the time to deal with it as it can potentially cause a rip later. Take a clean toothpick and poke a small hole. Press out the air, then pinch the hole closed. Continue rolling if needed. Be careful to only poke through the top dough layer and not all the way through. Place each rolled dough round off to the side and keep it covered with a damp tea towel to prevent drying out. I prefer to roll all my rounds at once instead of trying to juggle rolling, resting, and cooking. The dough needs to rest for about 15 minutes, and in that time I want to begin heating my pan since I am using cast iron. I allow the pan to gently heat on medium until about 5 minutes before I want to begin cooking, and then I increase the heat to medium-high. If you are using a thinner pan, begin heating about 5 to 7 minutes before kneading the pan, and turn it up just above medium as needed before using. A thinner pan is more responsive to temperature changes than the thermal mass of a cast iron. You have 2 choices for cooking the flatbread: a dry pan or pancake style with a little oil. They are both great, but with differing exterior crust. Cooking in a dry pan, then covering with a dry tea towel, makes for a nice soft flatbread, while lightly frying makes for a crispy flatbread. Too much oil will cause uneven browning as the flatbread bubbles up out of the oil. The small amount of sugar also helps us develop good color whether we're cooking these dry or with a little oil. Neither is better than the other, it is just personal preference. Place one round in the pan and allow it to cook for about 2 minutes on each side. If using oil, flip gently to prevent splashing oil. Flip again as needed to ensure desired level of browning. If you caught the pita video, we were trying to create a giant air pocket. With a stuffed flatbread, that same puffing can actually work against us because it lifts the dough away from the heat before the filling has had a chance to cook evenly. Should an air pocket begin to lift the flatbread up, press down gently with the spatula. Do not press with your hand, as escaping steam can burn. And if you have any leftover dough, give that a quick roll and cook it off. Add a little butter and sprinkle with cinnamon sugar for a nice little cook's treat. Most flatbread problems start long before the bread reaches the skillet. A dough that stretches instead of tears, a filling that's cool and relatively dry, and gentle cooking are what keep everything sealed and cooking evenly. Once you've mastered the technique, the filling is entirely up to you. What would you put inside yours?